Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Prevue's webinar, What Keeps You Up at Night? Planner Stresses and Solutions. I'm Prevue's editor, Lisa Simonson, and I'll be your moderator today. What we're going to do is identify some of the top challenges that event planners like you are dealing with. And of course, we acknowledge that for the past few months of tariff and trade wars, there may soon be additional stresses and issues to deal with, and Prevue's keeping tabs on what may be affecting you going forward. So today, we're very fortunate to have three special guests with us, fellow planners who will be sharing their experiences, insights, and solutions to an issue that may be affecting not only your work, but your health. Joining us are Heidi Dillon, CITP, who is Manager of Event Operations at 110, Heather Pilcher, CEO and Executive Producer of Blue Spark Event Design, and April Prensky, Regional Director of Sales for PRA. They're going to tell you more about themselves in a minute, but first, we want to say many thanks to our sponsor, the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau, who promote just a great, exciting, and historical city that is also at the forefront of medical research and, of course, sports. Go Eagles! So a couple of things. Today's session will be recorded and you will receive a link via email, so don't worry if you miss something. And as with all Prevue webinars, you will receive one CEU from the Events Industry Council. There's also a white paper available in the chat and on our website. So we also want to hear from you during this webinar on the chat. So please use the chat now to tell us where you're from. I see Idaho, Suwanee, Georgia, Philadelphia, yay, Kansas City, whoa, Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland. Hello, Switzerland, Chicago, Naples, Florida, and Nashville. Howdy, y'all. And Canada, Alexandria, Dallas, and Wisconsin. Hey, that's cool, guys. They're from all over, so wonderful. We're so happy to have you with us. And Indiana. So also feel free to submit your questions on the chat. We'll get to as many as possible at the end. So we also wanted to let you know about our next Visionary Summit. It's coming up May 19th to 21st at the Opal Sol, brand new property in Clearwater, Florida. The theme is survival strategies. It's going to encompass a lot of topics, and we've booked some really terrific speakers. So you'll want to register with the QR code on the flyer that's showing or at our website, prevuemeetings.com. Okay, so let's get this webinar going. Prevue has done quite a lot of research on this topic of planner stress. And one thing we've discovered in our surveys is that close to 70% of planners say that stress management is a top concern of theirs. So it's a very relevant topic, maybe even more so today. So what we want to do is start with whoever wants to start. Do you think planners face a disproportionate amount of stress? And what is it about a planner's job that makes it so stressful? Heather, would you like to start?
Sure. Yes. So again, I'm Heather Pilcher, Blue Spark Event Design. We're a corporate events agency, just for background of kind of how we view all of this fun stuff. Stress is very much a part of what we do. I think it's probably because we have so many stakeholders and expectations that are required to do our job effectively. And you have to make sure that all of those marks are hit. Meanwhile, it is a dynamic and live event. So things are changing and morphing and moving and whatever. So you have to be able to change quickly while keeping sort of the goals and all that stuff in mind. So it adds to the stress. You have to be really quick on your feet. I like to say that, the better you are at this, the easier it looks, which is also tough to then sell to leadership why you're stressed. They're like, you're great at this. I don't understand. You're always so calm. And you're like, yes. However, we are very proactive and we're very planned and we have all of the things written down. So I think that sort of balance as well is kind of tough to share. You don't want to overshare the experience to leadership to make you look or appear ineffective, but you also don't want to make it look so easy that they think they can do it without you. So it's kind of there's a lot of things going on at once. I would also say, as far as the stress to having the key players is very, very important. I think we'll touch on that a little bit later, but having great vendor partners and a really excellent team on site so that your client or maybe your company or your leadership can focus on the goal of the meeting, the content, the purpose of why you're there, and so that all the wheels and knobs and all that stuff can turn really effectively and correctly in the background so that they get the purpose of the meeting done. So, but yeah, so all of those things add to stress.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I'm happy to. I'm
Go
ahead,
April
April, you first.
Pransky. Oh, sorry, Heidi.
No, you
Hi,
first. Go for it.
I'm April Pransky, Regional Director of Sales for PRA Midwest here in the Chicago office. Just totally agree with everything that Heather said, but one thing I wanted to add was that I think a lot of times planners on paper are managing things, whether it's itineraries, layouts, but really we're managing human behavior, and human behavior is incredibly unpredictable. So whether it's what a bus driver decides to do day of an event or what the attendees decide is exciting and they want to focus their attention on at an event is all highly unpredictable. So managing human behavior takes a lot of time and experience, and even still, you never know what can happen day of. So I think that's something that definitely can add to the unpredictability and stress of being an event planner.
Okay, thank you very
And to
much.
jump on what I was intending to, I mean, I now have so many comments just from what both of you said. And again, I'm Heidi Dillon. I work for 110. So we're a third party company, third party agency, and I sit in Columbus, Ohio. We have sun today, probably see, which is very exciting. But in addition to, I mean, both points that you bring up, I think that the reality of this work, whether it's because you are physically on site, you're operating an event, or you're on a site inspection, or even, my team has events globally. So there's the reality of working on different time zones, or adjusting your time to reflect whoever you're partnering with and whatever destination you're planning for. So even if you are amazing, I think it's very difficult to do in this job, but even if you're amazing at kind of separating that work life balance, which is another coded word, something we aim for. But the reality is that this work is personal. So whether you're on site and you're not at home to hang out with your kids or your pet or your family or your friends, or you just are adjusting your schedules because of your work, that affects your personal life too. So I think that adds a layer of stress to the reality of, I mean, I agree with both of the things you brought up, Heather and April, as well.
All right, thank you. And Heather, you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I just one more thing that we all do, but we don't really talk about it as much with our clients. We are always doing this is risk management. It's like they always assume that we're taking care of it, which we are, but it can be a heavy load depending on what is happening at an event. Like we've had everything from potential life-threatening scenarios to people who are not supposed to be at the event try to break in. Like there's a lot of things that we take care of to let the event flow as it should, but also the risk management, keeping everybody safe, and that'll go into like dietary restrictions. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong that our job is 100% to try to proactively prevent. And that can be a heavy load if you don't have, like I said, I go back to a good team on site. You really need the expertise to be able to deal and deflect or to change or alter or whatever to make sure that that's successful. But risk management is a big part of it. My clients are always like, I know, Heather, we got to make sure that we have all the exits. I'm like, well, you don't want to be wrong, right? Like, I don't want to be wrong. Like, I want to make sure everybody gets out. So it's very important to me. So, and it should be important to you. Like, but it is kind of a heavy load to make sure that you're taking care of everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll get into a little bit later more on that. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the stressors that you and planners who are listening might be facing. And we talked about it taking you away from your family, different time zones and things like that. But are you noticing any difference as far as with deadlines as they've gotten shorter, is this adding to the stress of what you're trying to deal with and client expectations in that regard? Does anyone have a thought on that one? April, did you?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So, something that I've gotten better at in recent years, which was really difficult during the kind of turmoil, for lack of a better word, that happened during COVID, is when managing deadline expectations, focusing on what we can do versus what we can't. So, if a client is asking us for a proposal in 3 days. Instead of focusing on, we can't do that. We can't provide you a full-blown proposal in 3 days. Maybe it's, we can provide you with these resources in 3 days, and then we can follow up with X, Y, and Z after. What's most important to you? So learning the client's priorities, focusing on what we can provide in their given deadline, and then separating out what could come after to alleviate stress on our team, but still give the client at least part of what they're looking for in this time crunch, because sometimes it can be piecemealed and we can still accomplish everything together. Obviously, that's not always the case. It's not always a perfect world, but just even asking, a lot of times I'm surprised, and it's actually a unique element that they're in a rush for, and not the whole proposal when you really dig down deep into it.
Oh, that's interesting. How about, oh, go ahead, Heather, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I agree. I think COVID flushed out. I mean, we've been talking about short deadlines since I started in the business, so I don't think that's anything new, right? I think short deadlines comes from not understanding the work that goes into the creating of the event. And that's no fault of the client. They just don't know what it takes to get there from here, right? But I would say that a lot of people have changed their processes after COVID. I've noticed a lot of vendors where you used to be able to call and say, I want to do this crazy idea. And they're like, these are the things that we know we do well, and we don't necessarily go outside the box as much anymore because it's successful for their business. It's more consistent. So I've seen a little bit of a trend of that. But to April's point, I think a lot of event companies have gone to more inspiration boards too, to get more feedback, right? To, instead of doing the entire proposal, let's put together some lookbooks or ideas or inspiration so you can say, oh, that's not really what I thought a carnival was going to look like. I thought it was going to look like this. And you're like, oh, well, I'm glad I didn't waste like 3 days doing that. So, I do think it's an important stepping stone. And the last thing I would say to like short deadlines is, although everything seems to be on fire sometimes when people call, it is best for you and your team, and ultimately probably for the client, to try to stick to your process as best as you can. Because if you drop everything, it better be a really, really amazing event to be able to do that, because something is going to give somewhere. So try to be, I don't know, steady Eddie with your consistency and the quality and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, short deadlines are just a thing. And I think primarily it's lack of education for what they're asking for. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
So, another thing I know you're dealing with, and that causes a lot of stress, is budget limitations. They've been flat, they've even dropped. I don't know if that's the case with you, but with a lot of the planners that we survey, they have. So Heidi, did you have something to mention on budget limitations?
I think across the board, I don't know everyone on the call what your background is and where you're from, but it feels pretty easy to say that everybody has seen at least some piece of this in the world that we're living in, and in the reality of the budgets that we're provided and asked to oversee for our clients. And if you look, I mean, statistically, all of the costs have gone up. Hotel rooms, any kind of airline, any kind of transportation, and there's a reality of how our clients still want to provide hotel rooms and transportation and airline tickets to their clients, but they don't necessarily have more money to get that done. And when you add in the stressor, if I may, of every program has to be better than the last one, right? We need to continue to inspire. We need to continue to take it to the next level. That is absolutely a stressor and definitely a crunch on members of my team, and really pushes into how can we get creative? Are there spaces where we can reuse some elements? Maybe, I mean, and this is a really simple one, but looking at some personalized elements, maybe some like throw pillows. If we can spend a little bit more money on that this year, but then use them for a couple of years, is there a way that, yeah, it's still gonna pinch the budget now, but can we work on that to be an element that'll pay off for the clients in the end? There are ways to approach it, but there is a reality of, well, we need to look at a different hotel this year in order to accomplish X, Y, and Z that you definitely still want to keep part of the budget. So I think that also goes back to ties into your point, April, in talking about what are the priorities within the deadline, but then also within the budget as well. Because I think, and particularly when I consider year-over-year business, where we are so fortunate to partner with some clients and programs year over year, a lot of times at the risk of saying all the time, I don't want to say all the time, but oftentimes that startup call is just do it the same as last year, when really, when you have budget limitations, a little bit more thought really needs to be put into how some of that is built.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you. So this kind of goes into it, clients' unrealistic expectations when it comes to budgeting. So I don't know if you personally dealt with this, with having to, scale down what a client wanted to do. Everybody has great ideas at the beginning, but are they reasonable and are they possible? Does anyone have a thought on that? Maybe April?
Yeah, something we do at PRA is show the client what is necessary for the event, and then optional enhancements as a separate section in our proposals. So if the venue requires table and chair rentals in order to make the event happen, we're showing that as a necessity in our investment summary. And then the optional enhancements might include things like enhanced linen and live floral centerpieces and a 3-piece band, where those things are great to have, but not need to have. So that maybe at this point in time, you're only ready to commit to the venue. We don't want to lose that venue. It's a popular date. And then as things continue to shake out with the budget, you can shop on that optional enhancement section and say, okay, we were able to find X amount of extra dollars. Let's add in those live florals, or let's add in the live band. Again, back to priorities. Is it the visual appearance of the event? Is it the experience, what they're seeing and hearing at the event, what's important to them? We can start adding in those items. So kind of separating the two has helped with budget constraints, the need to have versus the nice to have.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Does anyone have anything to add to that? We can go on to vendor coordination. This is either beforehand or day of, like Heather was talking about, day of, having a team that is on point. Has this caused you stress trying to coordinate your vendors? Heidi, do you have anything to mention on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a hot topic all through. Absolutely can lead to stress leading up to and day of. Heather mentioned, yes, having a team around you that you can trust, that you can rely on, A+ team all around. Sometimes that does get a little bit removed. We actually don't use the word vendor at 110. We call all of our teams supplier partners. But realistically, we have less control over who those people are on that team, right? I'm not interviewing them. I'm not hiring them. We trust our partners to also have the best people around us, but there is less control over that, which again, I find myself, I'm usually pretty good at not doing this, but I don't want to put us all in the same column, but this tends to be a big group of type A people in this type of job as well, where we absolutely want to know what's going on. We want to, I don't want to say control the narrative, but we want to have our list checked off. We want to know every piece, and that's important when we're looking at fulfilling what client needs and what our events need. But the reality of bringing together all all of the people, especially when you get into those larger conferences and you have 20 additional staff for this day to complete whatever job it may be for this convention. Sometimes the trust that we need to put into our partners on the ground is in and of itself a stressor, much less bringing all the details together that is the true element of the job. So having partners that you can trust is a huge element to that, and partnering together so that you can build that trust through the planning time and through the planning stages, so that on day of you're really truly working as a team. It's really important.
Well, yeah, I mean, back a couple of years ago, I was the head of a chamber of commerce, and I put on so many events, and I learned the hard way that everything done before impacted the day of. So if that's all taken care of, well, I was still stressed, but you know. So you were talking about, Heather, a little bit about the unexpected and uncontrollable weather, tech difficulties, last minute cancellations. Are these the type of things that you've dealt with, or have you dealt with something else that was quite stressful?
Yeah, of course. I mean, but I think after you've been in this industry for a while, you are automatically like, we had an event last week down in Marco Island. We were looking at it was on the beach. We were looking at the weather a week out. Like, the weather changes so much, but we were proactively trying to figure out what we were going to do ahead of time just in case. And it ended up being a beautiful sunny day, but it ended up being a really windy day. And I was like, man, we were so close. Like, but nobody wants sand like blowing in your face when you're sitting on the beach for an event like that. So I think the longer you're in the industry, the more proactive you are with solutions before things come up, which alleviates your stress. Because when your client comes and says, hey, I think we're going to change this to this, then you automatically have some solutions to offer. And that will help with stress on site. I would also say having good hotel partners as well. And again, surrounding yourself with really good people on site will alleviate your stress, because we've all done stuff like this before. It's just, which solution are we going to provide, and which will be the most cost effective or best for the outcome for the event. So there are always things that change and morph and do on site, but again, you have to be willing to roll with that and find solutions and keep moving towards the end goal for this. Otherwise, this is not the profession for you. You get stopped in the tracks for a change, like, you need to find a different profession, and soon. So
Makes sense. Plan B, C, D, and E, maybe.
mm-hmm.
And you were talking about this too, managing attendees, and you know, between dietary restrictions and accommodations, snafus. These obviously cause a lot of stress. So Heidi or April, have you dealt with this before with the actual attendees?
I would make again another assumption that we all have stories between the unexpected, what we can't control, and just the things that attendees have brought to us. And it's always amazing to me how we do registration websites. I mean, even for anybody that signed up for this webinar, you registered one way or another. Few less details than you would for an incentive trip or a meeting registration. But even just filling that out, the comments that people include, thinking that they're being helpful, that really just aren't helpful. And we need to follow up so that we can plan to accommodate whatever special needs or requirements, or even, we often include a field in our registration websites that just asks for special occasions, like how can we help celebrate with you since you're spending the time with us. And the number of times that people just put in a date, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Is that a birthday? Is that an anniversary? Is it just your favorite day of the year? I have no idea how to work with this. So that's even before they're face to face. And April brought up the point earlier of just, you are working with people, you're managing the reality of human behavior. And who can predict that? In no way has anybody predicted that for an entire group of people successfully ever. And that's a day-to-day reality. So I think, tracking RSVPs or who's coming or who actually canceled last minute is almost the baseline. That's the very bare minimum, because the reality of what each person brings to that table or brings to that space is entirely different from the next person. And I think an interesting quote that actually hit me yesterday, or that I read yesterday, that's very in line with this, is that we come, we come and we see things as we think we see things as they are, but actually we see them as we are, right? So you may think that you have a perspective of just seeing what is there, what is around you, but in reality, you bring your experiences, your perspective to any situation you're in. And when you're at an event and you see 50, 100, 3,000, 10,000 people that are all bringing their perspectives, who knows what they're coming to you with today? You just never know.
Very true. Thank you. You're right. Everything is seen through your own perceptions. So it's really hard you can't think you know what somebody else is thinking. I've learned that the hard way also. So let's go we talked about long hours and multitasking, but let's talk about how do you deal with lack of sleep? I mean, lack of sleep is going to make you more susceptible to stressing out. It just happens and more emotional. Anybody who's not getting enough sleep is not functioning. So how do you handle this? How do you just make yourself go to sleep? I I take NyQuil with my doctor's recommendation because I can't do the medication. But anyway, it does help. And yeah, without sleep, you're kind of running on fumes. So, April, did you have something on that?
Yeah, I love sleep. Love this topic. So there's two things that I do personally that have helped me with a better sleep schedule. I'm still not perfect, I think many of us aren't, but one is setting boundaries when it comes to PTO, sick time, mental health days. If I'm at a point where I'm nearing burnout or I'm not my full self, I don't feel any shame in using the sick time that we're provided in order to return to work my best self. And I would encourage anyone else who is in a leadership position or in the position to create culture in their workplace to do the same, because mental health is just as important as physical health. And if you're not getting sleep, you're actually harming both your mental and physical health. And mental health concerns can manifest as physical health. I just feel like sometimes in the workplace, we take physical health concerns really seriously. Someone has the flu, it's like, of course, log off, we'll take care of your emails. But the same goes if someone is feeling a lot of anxiety or hasn't gotten sleep lately. So I do my best to respect my colleagues when they're in that situation, and therefore they do the same for me. So I think that removing the stigma around mental health, sick days as mental health days to catch up on sleep or rest is really important. And then the other thing, the second thing I do is try to engage in non-screen based activities when I am not bogged down with work. So if you have lots of days where you're working until the late hours of the night and you're looking at a screen for 12 plus hours a day, that does affect your sleep significantly. And in today's business climate where everything is on Zoom and Teams and email, you are looking at your screen a lot. So whether it's going to a workout class where phones aren't allowed, or taking a walk and maybe leaving your phone on do not disturb, or reading a paperback book instead of something on an iPad, it really actually can help you fall asleep and get better sleep. So sometimes I just set a timer for like 20 or 40 minutes, whatever I can squeeze in, and I make sure I read screen free, and it really does help a lot.
That sounds good.
And I
It sounds,
think,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry,
Go.
Lisa. I think what popped into my head, and maybe because I was just in a site in Europe last week before, time flies. And the reality of that too is jet lag, right? So you're busy all day, your brain doesn't stop, at least mine doesn't. again, I'm speaking for everyone, but your brain doesn't stop and you finally have your 6 hours or whatever to sleep. And you know you need it, but that almost stresses you out more, right? I know I need to go to sleep, but my brain can't stop. And I know that in 3 hours, my brain will wake up from jet lag, and that in and of itself becomes its own stressor. And I have a couple of things that I found is that I do have a podcast that I go to. Happy to recommend this for anyone. It's called Sleepy. Very easy to remember. And it's just a guy named Otis who reads you stories. So, yes, April, I'm a big fan of a literal book and reading a literal book, but there's also a space where I need to just close my eyes. And if I have something else to listen to, that at least helps my brain slow down a little bit. And then I will still listen to Otis. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I think it's easy to just assume, well, I'm awake, let's get some stuff done. But even if I can't get that sleep for whatever reason, rest is still important. That it does not take the place of sleep. I'm with you, April. I might be sleep's number 2 fan. You're number 1. But even being able to sit down or lay down. And I'm seeing the chat blow up a little bit. It seems like we've got a lot of sleep fans here. Thank you,
Yeah.
team. But even listening to Otis or another podcast or just a bedtime story literally can really help just my brain calm and get rest before the day really kicks off again.
And I would say for on-site, I'm going to do the third side of this. I think for on-site, make sure that you budget in downtime for yourself. Just because rehearsals start at 5:30 in the morning does not mean you need to be there all the way through to the end of the welcome reception or whatever it is at 11. Make sure that you budget your time. We try really hard to keep our staff to 10-hour timestamps, which I know it sounds short, but it's not. Especially if you're walking 16 miles a day in a hotel, right? So trying to budget the time accordingly. And if there is an hour that you can go and just lie down for just a second and not talk to anybody and not fix anything, it will affect the actual sleeping time that you get to do too. So budgeting that on site will help.
I love that you call it budgeting, Heather, because similar to what Heidi said, rest is important too. And I budget oftentimes time in my schedule where I make sure I eat lunch, get water, bathroom break. When you have back to back to back meetings, sometimes you don't realize that you've stressed yourself at your desk for so long. So budgeting time for yourself is really important. And again, if you respect that for your colleagues will hopefully respect that for you in turn. So if I block 30 minutes on my calendar and say that that's my time where I need to go get some fresh air, go for a walk, have a bite to eat, refill my water bottle, I will return to work the second half of the day, the best version of myself. And if I just power through that or don't budget that time, I'm not going to be my best self the entire day because we didn't get that rest and that recharge.
Agreed.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people commenting on sleep, and I'm going to mention some of them a little bit later. But thank you, everybody, and those who are contributing to the chat. Thank you. So I'm going to go into multitasking. I know it's been debunked as an effective way to behave, but how can you, if you have to multitask, how can you make it a little bit more effective and less stressful for yourself? Does anyone want to talk about multitasking?
As somebody who tries and fails often at multitasking, I would not recommend it. The number of times where I'm sitting on a one-on-one with one of my team members and, Teams, or Zoom, any of those platforms, which are both blessings and curses every moment of my day, a Teams chat will come in and I'm thinking I'm responding to them and still talking to my employee, my event manager is never actually a real thing. I can never do two things at once. What I have found works for me really well is looking at and as a team manager, I have a number of different accounts and different programs I'm looking at once. So as an event planner, it may look a little bit different, but I compartmentalize where I can. So I know that for the next 15 minutes, rather than go through everything from top to bottom kind of like when I start my day, I'll open up my inbox, I'll search for anything urgent, but then I'll start with this client or this program. How can I take care of everything kind of in my queue anyway, my top priority for that part of what I need to get done today versus bounce back and forth 18 times within an hour, which then scatters my thoughts a little bit and I think makes me a little less effective. So the divide and conquer can work in many regions. As a team plan when you have a lot of things to get done, but also just tackling my inbox. How can I take one part at a time? And sorting my Outlook by conversations has been an absolute game changer for me. If anybody has not done this, it's a very easy setting. And it keeps everybody who's on one email line together as one group rather than trying to find, okay, who responded to this 5 minutes after the other one, but there were 6 messages in between. Trying to chase that down takes way more time than it's worth. Stack your conversations. I promise it
Agreed.
helps.
Yeah,
gonna-
Heidi, you mentioned us being type A, and I know you said that you felt like you were speaking for everyone, but you can definitely speak for me and call me type A
too.
because I think probably most of us are. I love crossing something off of a to-do list. It feels so good. It's like a little serotonin boost when you cross something off a to-do list. So similar to what you said about not bouncing back and forth through many tasks, which I think is kind of what we call multitasking, is I create my must-dos before end of day and then what can wait to-do list every morning. So these are the 3 things that I cannot log off today without doing. And sometimes that morphs and changes throughout the day depending on the calls and emails you get, but then which tasks you really want to get done. But if you have to, they can wait until tomorrow. So that keeps me from doing too much of the multitasking, monkey brain swinging back and forth to multiple topics. Because again, I don't feel like I'm my best self when I have too many literal or figurative tabs open at once.
That's very
Agreed.
true.
I want to add one more thing because I'm a visual learner. I think a lot of people in our industry are, right? Because we design all the fun, fabulous things, right? So I like what Heidi said about our emails and April as far as making the list. I have a full focus planner, everybody wants, but it has a day and the hours are already built into each page. So if you have meetings that you can't miss, I put those in first and then I'll block the time to only focus on this client and then only focus on this client. And I feel better because I can see the entire day before I start anything. And those blocks match my list. So I get to cross it off and then cross the block off, which is a really effective way to use all the time that you have without chit-chatting in your office or whatever else. So, you're like, ooh, I got stuff to do. But it's a very easy way to control what the outcomes are for your day.
The other thing that I've been encouraging some of my team members to do, you all may find this a little controversial, but there is a reality to, and maybe it's a little bit of a setting a boundary, but because somebody sends me a Teams message or a text or an email, I don't have to respond to that in 5 minutes. I can give that a half hour or an hour. If I'm in the middle of a productive meeting and I'm online with a client, I expect my team to appreciate and understand, short of an actual Mayday situation, which I think we've all come to appreciate does happen in this world. But having that grace to understand that everybody has a lot on their plate. I'm never the one person that can answer any one question. I just don't. While I have a lot of things that I know, I'm never the only person that can answer something or help somebody figure something out. We have a team to help do a lot of those things. And me responding to everything within 5 minutes, even for the little things that we could give a couple of hours to, then creates behavior that everybody expects me to respond within 5 minutes every time. So what I found from some of my team members who get very excited to be prompt and take care of their clients or their sales team or whoever it may be, is that sometimes that creates behaviors that are actually pretty detrimental to their days because they aren't able to focus on anything because they're always the one that can answer within 7 minutes or less. So finding that safe boundary, and everybody's team is different and everybody's day-to-day is different. So I know that's not a rule that everybody can just necessarily apply to their day-to-day. But that's for some people, that is a necessary reality that they're working on.
Heidi, do you have your notifications on for your email, or do you have your notifications turned off for your email?
I have my notifications turned on. I'm currently on Do Not Disturb so that I'm not distracted from this very important conversation. But I do have my notifications turned on. And what I can do then is I can minimize my Outlook. And I've gotten pretty good at seeing things come in to understand the traffic. If I see 80 pop up at once, I'm probably going to pivot and see what in the heck's going on over here. But if I can just see that, generally we're getting them at a normal pace, that doesn't stress me out as much as having it up and seeing it coming in and feeling like I need to get responses out right away.
100%.
Yeah. I have my notifications turned off for group chats because group chats are great and important and collaboration is key, but it can be like a lot of pinging. So I look at the group chat when it's time, and then when it's not time, you don't have all of those little things in the corner of your eye popping up, distracting you from what you're trying to focus on.
Like that too. You do feel that pressure to immediately answer. And like you just said, Heidi, there's always the person who's, I'm answering right away. And but let's go on to something that has been mentioned to me and in our surveys. It causes a lot of stress is getting ghosted or struggling with communication when you're trying to plan a meeting. I mean, how do you handle that when somebody just won't get back to you? Or do you experience this? Anybody? April, you're nodding.
Yeah, we get ghosted. We do. It's very unfortunate. It's something that we try to avoid at all costs. When we mark something as lost in Salesforce, there's an option that says no response, and it's my least favorite one to select. I'd rather lose to a competitor and learn why than just be ghosted. But something that I've tried to do, I'm not going to say it has 100% success rate, but is let the client know why I am wanting an answer from them. And maybe it's that we have resources on hold for their date and we're happy to release them if they're not going to work with us. Or if it is something we did wrong that we could do differently in the future, we want to better service them in the future. So if they could let us know why we may have lost the business, I can give that feedback to myself or our team to improve. So just kind of driving home the why with the client has sometimes elicited a response, but it is a very unfortunate reality in the digital age to be ghosted, whether personally or professionally. I think it hurts the same.
Distressing to say the least. And okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go to the next question because we are just using up a lot of time, which is amazing. Thank you. So is there a way, or do you have a method of dialing down the emotion? We talked about lack of sleep making you more emotional, but how can people look at the situation objectively and not thinking, oh, I failed at something if something goes wrong? Is that a normal, it's not a productive reaction, but have you ever experienced it? Does anyone want to talk about that? Heather, you look like you.
Yeah, things don't ever go wrong. It's just
Yeah.
challenges that you overcome, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I would say that it happens to the best of us when things don't go as planned. There's a couple of different ways that I think I've seen people deal with it. If obviously, again, you have to focus. If you are dealing with somebody who is unhappy with the result of whatever it is you did, you got to keep in your mind, what is the goal, or what do they want from this conversation? What are they trying to achieve? Are they just venting because they're unhappy, or are they trying to change the outcome? Is there something you can provide as a solution? If there is, go ahead, activate it, work on it, try to find the best outcome possible, right? If there is somebody who is unreasonable with, I don't like that shade of pink, even though it was approved by them, on site, it may look different because it's actually in person versus a computer. You, again, try to find a solution. If you can't, you can always try just chatting with a friend after all of it's done to kind of vent out yourself a little bit, right? There's always that opportunity. I do try to say, if you're doing this on site, Try to pick somebody who's not working with you on site because we don't want gossip reels going around, right? You want to keep it professional and productive and moving forward. So if you want to call your mom and talk about it in your hotel room, great. Whatever it does to level the stress down and kind of keep moving and remember why you're there and what the purpose of it is, that is helpful. But again, I think once you find, I think the worst feeling as a planner is not being able to offer a solution to something, but there's always something you can do. And if for some reason you're stressed, not sleeping, and your brain is on pause for whatever reason, lean on your team. Group think about whatever it is that you can do. Well, I've done this and this, I've done this and this. Find as much of a possibility of a solution as you can, and just kind of keep moving forward. But yeah, I mean, everybody has their moments, right? So just try to remember, April said it best, everybody's human, right? Try to make sure that even if something goes wrong, that you tried your best, and if there's something you can do to change it, fix it, make it better, great, let's do that.
Thank you. Heidi, did you have something to say on that?
I think the hardest thing, I just thinking back to when I was first on site, when I was first planning, is separating again, because this work can be so personal with how much of your time, attention, and focus it takes. It's there's a huge importance in being able to separate yourself from what frankly what might be a personal failure, but also the reality that things happen. And because things happen that, and maybe it's on your program or it's part of your area of responsibility, does not mean that you messed up. So being able to separate that and being, I mean, like Heather just so eloquently said, being able to find a solution. How can we look at this a little differently? How can we come at it a different angle? Um, and it's very easy to say in one sentence, but being able to understand and appreciate that separation is a really big deal.
Thank you very much. And we've gotten into differentiating between what's required and what's optional. And I just wanted to ask maybe a couple more questions about after the event, post-event stress. That's a thing too. And what should you do? I mean, a lot of people have trouble with giving themselves a pat on the back. Is that important to say, hey, job well done, good job? Heather, is that
Yeah,
something
okay,
that
so
you do?
we celebrate a lot. Any kind of wins we get out of anything, right? So we celebrate a lot in our company in general. When we get a contract, we have a yes button. So it's just kind of in our culture. But I think at the end of an event, as far as the stress, I don't know if like I say, I don't necessarily have a lot of stress at the end of an event. I feel very accomplished. I feel like we're very excited that everything went the way we went, the goals are met. I just feel like there's a lot less stress. I feel like we come down off of the really stressful high at the end of a meeting. But as far as giving a pat on the back, I think I'm more often sharing with our team like the successes that I saw in them. So I guess we're celebrating it that way. I don't necessarily say like, look how amazing I am. I don't do that. I agree. But celebrating as a team, it definitely, it's not just one person. No event is run by one person ever. Even if they say that's true, that is not true. It is you and your team and then some, right? So I don't know, if you have a hard time patting yourself on the back or feeling accomplished for whatever you've achieved, just focus on your team and celebrate it that way. I think that's probably the best for everybody, really, to acknowledge all the hard work, right, that everybody did that week.
On our team, we do weekly high fives. So every week on our weekly meeting, we give a high five, which is just shouting out something that another team member did to go above and beyond. Like you said, whether it's winning a competitive piece of business or pulling off a tough challenge on site. And also part of our culture is very much celebrating together. But in terms of feeling stress after a program, it probably is because of lack of sleep. So if we go back to that budgeting the rest and relaxation and recharge, if you're on site until 1 a.m. on Monday, maybe just block your calendar on Tuesday morning to give yourself some time to recoup, so that you can show up at 9 or 10 your best self instead of 7 and you're only halfway recharged. We're really good on our team about saying, hey, I worked late last night. I need to get a late start the next morning, and helping pitching in for each other so that the people who are out late can can get the time they need to rebound after a long event. It's important.
Yeah, agreed. So let's get into some audience questions. Somebody wants to know, we did talk about it, but how do you manage clients with small budgets that expect a lot of attention and take up a lot of your time? This is a big stressor for me when dealing with overlapping programs. So how would you handle this?
So
Somebody's taking up a lot of your time.
yes, also have appreciate that question because that is a reality. One thing that I stress to my team is that all of our clients' questions and needs are important, but that is not the same. It's not anywhere in the same field as urgent. And there's a reality, and it's difficult to necessarily train behaviors. That takes time. There's no one email that's going to change how somebody approaches something or help them understand how their actions affect how teams work. That takes a lot more time than just one quick email. But what I have found to help anyway for our teams is to kind of over communicate, to respond to those messages and say, hey, I'm looking forward to our call on Wednesday. And if there's something that needs to be happening, if you have a meeting to prepare for or something before Wednesday, I'd be happy to look into that for you. But let's look at this comprehensively as a team when this call we've got scheduled. There are ways to address the 80 emails that you get a day and trying to condense that so that you're not tied to that inbox, trying to just respond every 5 minutes, and then you're not actually getting any of the work done that you need to get done.
Yeah, and I saw this is Alexa's question, I believe. You said overlapping programs. There
Yes.
are times where if the opportunity for a program comes in and all of our operators are already booked and we're needing to outsource an operator or rearrange our schedule, we will be transparent with the client and let them know that there may be an additional charge because we were already sold out over those dates. So in the same vein as Heidi saying that you have to be transparent and kind of over explain yourself,
Right.
let them know that we're happy to partner with them on this program. There will be these additional things because we're already sold out over those dates, or maybe sold out isn't the right term, but our team is already very committed over those dates.
I would also say too is I'm not sure if the person responding owns their own company or if they have control over this, but you may want to take a look at your average spend on the events, and because all events take time, right? Low budget ones can take as much time as high dollar ones. So for the most effective use of you and your team's time, I don't know if you have maybe a minimum that you want to explore to make sure that it's moving your business forward and creating fabulous experiences for your clients.
Mhm. Yeah, somebody here is describing it as event hangover, which is a funny way to put it. It's a good way to put it. You just feel like, oh. And someone else is actually, we were talking about dealing with other people and understanding. Somebody's saying it's hard to understand what people are really saying, what they're not saying, I guess. Have you ever run into this? They're saying this is a very hard thing to deal with. And then you find out later, maybe they weren't happy about something. How can you kind of get into that with somebody? What are you not telling me? Would you ask that kind of question?
I wonder if sometimes the root of that is that the person giving you the feedback actually isn't the final decision maker or the final stakeholder, and that they're trying to meet the expectations of their boss or stakeholder. So
Mhm.
perhaps you're speaking with an administrative assistant and they've asked you to do X, Y, and Z, and you feel like you've done that, but then whoever they report to had a different expectation. We definitely run into that a lot in the DMC space where there's multiple layers of approval and multiple layers of opinions. So sometimes asking to get additional layers on the call with you or direct feedback from one of those additional layers. Can you tell me in their words, where we didn't meet the expectation or how we can adjust to satisfy their request? Because if there's middle person, maybe sometimes the message is getting a little bit misconstrued.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, I think more questions are coming in. I have a question actually too. Oh yeah, our time is running out. So, I was just gonna ask about co-shared space. Is this something that you've heard of? Is it something that would help your budgeting? Is that something that you would try? Like, for example, with sharing a booth at a show or sharing space at the actual venue. Is that a possibility?
There's so
Anybody?
many questions that go with that.
I'm sorry.
No,
No.
for us, I mean, a lot of times semi-private events are an option to save money. So if you're talking about venue space, you know, when the budget doesn't allow for a full venue buyout, if the client is open to a semi-private space, that certainly does help with budget. That's a little bit different than sharing a booth at an expo, but
Right.
allowing there to be other people going in and out of XYZ venue while you have your own designated area, but maybe you can still see the rest of the restaurant or venue. That is very common now. It's a lot less common to buy out the whole venue when the group isn't large enough due to budget. But I think there's another element there that maybe Heidi or Heather would be better suited to answer.
No, I think you hit it. I don't know. I don't know about co-sharing booths. We don't get into that side of it very often. That's usually somebody who's purchasing it for the show that we might be running. But yeah, I don't know why the semi-private for venues. I would say that though, if you were looking for, you would have to really want that venue if you were willing to do, like say if you were doing an offsite venue and you had 500 people and it fits 1,000, like I'm not sure I'd be willing to put up drapes so it's 500 other people could have an event next door. I just feel like you would find a smaller venue. So I feel like there's a lot of questions that would go into why specifically this venue and why would you pick this if it doesn't fit in your budget to try to make it look right. It's just, it would probably guide our client to something else.
All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. So I just wanted to thank you all so much for joining us today, and thanks to everybody who's listening and watching. And I guess have a great day. Oh, thank you. Very informative webinar. That's nice.
Get some good sleep. I think that was
Yeah, right. There's some really good recommendations in the chat. There's somebody who recommended doing what soldiers do. I hope everybody saw that. It's really interesting. But anyway, thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.